Hey, it's Doc T here with another Horses Advocate podcast. And today I want to talk to you about a simple explanation of what Cushing's disease is. So Cushing's disease, by definition, is a high level of cortisol in the horse's blood. And it seems like a lot of horses have this condition, and a lot of people I ask don't know what it is, how they got it, what they're treating it with, or anything else about it. So let me put it into a nutshell. For a couple of years now, I've been saying that it's a neurotransmitter problem. And recently, the AAP meeting, the American Association of Equine Practitioners meeting, they called it a neurodegenerative disease, which is exactly what it is. So let's take a look at how a hormone works, and then specifically what's happening in Cushing's disease and what you're trying to treat. A hormone works by measuring a value of something in the blood and then reacting to that value by either increasing production of that product that you want or decreasing the production. And it works in a two-step process. It's called a feedback loop. Well, with cortisol, the hypothalamus, which is a portion of the brain, will determine how much cortisol is circulating in the blood. And then the hypothalamus will send a transmission via a nerve to the pituitary gland. In the pituitary gland, they are responsible for making what I call work orders. Work orders are precursors. They're little instruction sets that go off to certain organs and tell these organs to produce more of a product. In this case, the pituitary is going to send out something called ACTH, or adrenocorticotropic hormone. Now, ACTH goes off to the adrenal glands, and it tells them to make more cortisol. So now, the instruction set says raise your cortisol. So the cortisol starts to go up, and the hypothalamus measures this and says, okay, we have enough. And it sends another signal to the pituitary gland saying, slow down. We don't need as much. Cut the work orders. So that ACTH is decreased and the adrenals stop making as much cortisol as they should. So the cortisol stays at a good level. It actually rises in the morning and decreases at night and is well regulated. Cortisol is a very important natural hormone that we all have, horses and humans. This also happens for the kidneys, and it's the hypothalamus measures how concentrated our urine is, and it sends out to the pituitary, hey, send out something called anti-diuretic hormone to make the urine more concentrated. And ADH goes out to the kidneys and makes it more concentrated, and as the concentration gets more set, it sends another instruction to the pituitary saying, hey, decrease anti-diuretic hormone, and our urine concentration goes up. Now, let's add another thing. Let's look at the increasing, decreasing daylight. The hypothalamus is going to be looking at increasing daylight, which means from December 21st in the northern hemisphere toward June 21st, the daylight increases. As it does, it sends out melanotropic stimulating hormone, and that goes to melanocytes that say, hey, shed your hair coat, summer's coming. And it does that, and with decreasing daylight, it says, okay, stop sending out melanotropic signal hormone, and that's stimulating hormone. Sorry, it gets confusing too. And that tells the animal, the horse in this case, to maintain its hair coat and actually increase the hair coat because winter's coming, you need to stay warm. So these are three examples of what goes on using the hypothalamus to the pituitary to the target organ. Now, in Cushing's disease, what's happening is the hypothalamus is measuring the levels of cortisol, and it says, oh, we're getting high levels. Let's send a message to the pituitary and say, cut down the ACTH so we slow down the production of cortisol. That message never gets through. So it is a neurodegenerative disease. The hypothalamus is saying, stop. It's like going down a hill in a truck that the brakes don't work, and you keep pressing and pressing and pressing on the brakes, and nothing happens. The truck keeps going faster and faster. Cortisol levels increase. You have high cortisol. That's the definition of Cushing's disease. Now, keep in mind, the hypothalamus is working just fine. The pituitary is working just fine. It's sending out ACTH. It's doing its job. The adrenals are working just fine. They're producing more cortisol. Where the problem lies is the communication between the hypothalamus and pituitary. And that's where pergolide comes in. Pergolide is what you give. It's a dopamine type drug. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, and the neurotransmitter that you're giving is putting brakes on the runaway truck to slow down the production of ACTH. That tells the adrenals to decrease the amount of cortisol being produced. And that's what Cushing's disease is all about. It has nothing to do with pituitary. It's fine. It hypertrophies, which is a fancy name for it grows large. Just like when you work your muscles here and work more and more, they grow large too because it's being overworked. So that's going on. But also you can get diabetes insipidus. Diabetes insipidus, not to be confused with diabetes mellitus, is when the kidneys don't get the message to start to concentrate the urine through ADH. So it creates more and more urine. It looks just like water, and the horse is peeing a lake in its stall and drinking copious amounts of water. I mean, like 3, 4, 5 bucketfuls at a time. It's just drinking all the time because it's peeing everything out. That's diabetes insipidus, same problem. Now we also look at some horses whose hair coat doesn't shed in the springtime. The hair coat that was made in the fall is still on there in April, May, and June, and you have to shave it off. That's because the message from the hypothalamus pituitary is still not working. In comes pergolide. Pergolide helps to control that production, that message that's being sent to the pituitary, so the pituitary can do its job properly. That's what's going on now. Not to sound like a broken record or a struck. And you guys who are young, you don't even know what a record is. So that's really not a good example. But not to be sounding the same thing over and over again and sounding monotonous. But if all neurotransmitters, including dopamine, are proteins, and my big thing is I'm seeing more and more protein deficiencies in horses, it may be a good hypothesis that some of these horses are low on proteins and they're not getting the neurotransmitters they need done. Now, there may be a ton of other factors for why dopamine's not being produced, or maybe dopamine is being produced, but the receptors or the transmitter isn't being used, and that's why pergolide's got to come in. You know, it's a little bit confusing here, and I don't blame you to scratch your head at this point. All you know is you're adding pergolide, the horse gets better. But what I'm suggesting is, and I've had some horses that have gone through their veterinarian to test for their horse after they've gone on a protocol of increasing their protein and decreasing the grain, which decreases inflammation in the gut and decreases the loss of protein, that these horses, after they're on the program for a little bit, they measure and they find their cortisol levels are doing well. They're able to back off and even eliminate the dosing of pergolide. That would be a fantastic thing if you're a lab guy, if you're a researcher who wants to look into something. I'd be looking at why is this dopamine not occurring, look at the protein that the horse is getting, and see if we can put 2 and 2 together here. Because right now I'm getting a lot of horses coming back to me saying, hey, I've been testing the protein, the pergolide or the cortisol levels, and I've been able to back off the pergolide now that I'm on the higher protein. So that's my thoughts. That explains Cushing's disease. It's another little bit of tidbit for you to put together and to answer the question, why is this happening to my horse? And I hope this helps. I'll be back another day for some more information on how you can become your horse's advocate. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye. Hey everyone, Doc T here. Thank you for listening to my content. Would you do me a huge favor? Would you please subscribe, comment, like, thumbs up, and give a star review? However it's presented to you, I want you to do that. There are 2 reasons. The first, of course, is to improve this product. This way I know what you like, what you don't like, what I can improve upon, what topics you want me to cover. But more importantly, it's also going to help others find me. And by doing that, you are now engaged in this mission of helping horses thrive in a human world. By you helping, we can reach others. And that I would be so grateful for. And remember, go to thehorsesadvocate.com for updates on this information. thehorsesadvocate.com. And again, thank you so much for being here. Doc T out.